Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for Thursday, December 27th, 2018. On today's episode, we're going to talk about the latest film and TV news. And in Life Advice Corner with Chris, we're going to hopefully help an adult get over being scared of horror movies. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta, and joining me on today's podcast is Slash Film writers Hoai-Tran.
Hey, everyone.
And Chris Evangelista.
Hello.
So, I think it's been about a week since we've done a news episode, and because of the holidays, we have been chugging along with the news on slashfilm.com, but that said, not many of those news items are really, discussion worthy, so with a week of news, I just piled through. I was able to compile enough for one day of this podcast.
Yeah, we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel here.
Yeah. That's not to say you shouldn't read slashfilm.com during the holidays, but, there's a lot of things to watch, but it's not a lot to, dissect. But let's get into the few stories that happened in the last week that we do want to talk about. And let's start with The Lion King, because I know when we've talked about this, the recent trailer came up, we've all been kind of baffled that it seems like they're basically just doing a shot-for-shot remake of the original, and it's not even a live-action remake because it seems fully animated from what we can tell. So, HT, is that what is happening?
So, according to Disney's live-action film studio chief, Sean Bailey, that will not be what's happening. Sean Bailey assures fans that this Lion King will not be a shot-for-shot remake of the original. And he says, quote, "The Lion King is a revered and beloved movie, so you'd better revere and love those parts that the audience wants. But there are things in the movie that are going to be new." So that's the extent of what he says about what to expect of the new Lion King, which is directed by Jon Favreau. And it's sounds along the lines of what they've been saying for the past few of Disney live action films, and they haven't always abided by that assurance. I'm speaking specifically about Beauty and the Beast, for example, which is a movie I am one of the few who abhor just because it is completely creatively stifling in the way that it slavishly adheres to the original and shot-for-shot remake, and yet makes it less compelling somehow. But
HT, they added that one song.
Anyways, I'm not here to talk about how much I hate Beauty and the Beast. I am cautiously optimistic about The Lion King. I'm not as invested in this movie as I was for Beauty and the Beast, which was my favorite Disney film. So I'm going to hope that Sean Bailey and Jon Favreau are going to put their money where their mouth is. Or, I don't know, they have a lot of money, so they can put it wherever they want.
With Dumbo, it does look like they're changing it quite a bit. It looks like Dumbo learns to fly in the very beginning of that live-action version of that film. And, the family has a much bigger part. I can see that being a very different movie. Or not very different, but a sizably different movie than, as compared to, Beauty and the Beast. But, this teaser for the Lion King it's literally shot for shot. So, I don't know. I'm interested to see more when they reveal more trailers and more marketing for this film. I'm sure that most of the marketing is going to be heavily played upon people's love for the movie. So I'm sure it's going to be
iconography for sure.
Yeah, just like Aladdin too. So it's going to be interesting because I wonder if there's going to be kind of a backlash from moviegoers of I don't need to, I already have the movie I love. I don't need to see this new version of that. I think they're going to have to show moviegoers that there's something more to it than just a shot for shot remake, but maybe I'm wrong. Am I wrong, Chris?
I feel like no matter how they market this, it's going to make a bajillion dollars. I just think that the factor is what's going to draw people in. And
Chris coming in with the cynicism.
I'm curious to see the film. I hope it's good, but I have a feeling if they never release even another trailer except that teaser, it's still going to make a shitload of money just because that nostalgia factor is just going to be oh, I remember that. I have to go see it again. And that's where we are as a society of film goers.
I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but I first saw this trailer when it was a work in progress. Like before they even started filming the movie, I think Jon Favreau debuted it at the last D23 Expo. And while this trailer was playing, I looked around and the people around me, and sure, this is the Disney fan convention, but the people around me were crying, were in tears over this footage. So, I mean, they have their money at least. So, and they have my money. Who am I kidding? I'm a huge Disney fanatic. I had some dust in my eye or something too. Let's move on and talk about this year in TV shows and movies. Chris, you did a roundup of the 2018 TV shows and movies that actually scored the coveted 100% on a score on Rotten Tomatoes. So tell us about it. Like, what are the movies that are universally believed to be perfect, I guess? Or not perfect, but...
Yeah, they have the coveted critical consensus where, for once critics all agree, which rarely happens on anything, really. So I won't read all titles because there's a lot, and I encourage everyone to go to slashfilm.com and read it because I took the time to break all of this down. But I'm also ashamed to say there's a lot of stuff on here that I've heard of but just have yet to see. So, I consider myself a cinephile, but I'll have to admit there's a lot of stuff on here I haven't seen yet. I mean, the big one is, of course, Paddington 2, which I have seen. I'm thrilled that that's on here because that's a charming, delightful film.
I'm surprised that there hasn't been like an Armin White that has come out and just to be that one guy that
As I was writing this story up yesterday, I was like, I have a feeling someone's going to see this or someone else's version of the story and jump on Rotten Tomatoes and deliberately give something a bad review just to be a jerk. Like that guy who did it to, I already forget what movie it was, where there was that one guy who deliberately did that and admitted he did it deliberately just to shake things up. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. But for now, Paddington 2 is at 100%. Some other things include Leave No Trace, which I have yet to see, but I hear is great, and I have a screener, and I'm probably going to try and watch it either tonight or tomorrow. Minding the Gap, another thing I haven't seen. Oh, Lucy, another thing I haven't seen, but it has Josh Hartnett in it, so I'm thrilled that there's a Josh Hartnett movie on this.
Wow.
Somehow.
And the documentary Shirkers, which I saw a couple weeks ago, which is great, but it's also about filmmaking.
Right.
So, critics always love that kind of thing.
Yeah. Those are some of the film titles. Some of the TV titles include...
Wait, I'm surprised you're not talking about Pick of the Litter here.
I haven't seen it. I want to because it's about puppies and I like dogs. But I have yet to see this either. So I gotta get cracking on this stuff. I thought I was pretty much good to go for the year, but this list embarrassed me and revealed how little I've seen. But on the TV front, there's Cobra Kai, which I know Peter really liked and watched, I think 7 times. Didn't you watch it?
I think 3.5 at this point.
All right.
3.5.
Yeah. So that's on here.
I'm so happy that this is on here. This is vindication for me because this show is so good. Honestly, in the year-end list, if I put Cobra Kai as my favorite movie of the year, is that cheating? I guess it's cheating, right?
Yes, because it's under TV. Don't do it. Don't be that guy.
Okay.
The Good Place Season 3 is on here, which isn't surprising. Everyone seems to love The Good Place. Dear White People Season 2 is on here, the Netflix show. Making It, which is a very charming show with Nick Offerman and Amy Poehler. It's basically, if anyone has ever seen The Great British Bake Off, this is like the American version of that, but instead of baking, they're crafting, and it's just a very nice, polite show. So I'm not surprised. It's on here. So yeah, that's just a sampling. Like I said, please go to Slash Film, read the list. There's a fair amount of titles on here.
And One Day at a Time, the second season of that on Netflix, I have heard nothing but great things about the show, but I don't know a single person that watches it.
Yeah, there's a lot. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I know one person who watches it, and she raves about it constantly and says that it is one of the best TV shows or TV sitcoms on TV right now. And I have yet to see it too, but I will say there's one person I know.
Yeah, and it should be noted that getting 100% Rotten Tomatoes doesn't mean that you're the perfect movie. What that means is that 100% of critics agreed that they liked the movie. So you could actually see one of these projects. I mean, I haven't done this research, but you could click on one of these films, like Leave No Trace, and the average critic rating for that, even though it has 100%, could be less than the average critic rating for a movie that has 90%. Just because, it's just taking into account, I think, what does it need to be fresh? 70% or something?
I think it's 70.
65 or 70, something around there.
It's I remember it was 70% for just fresh and then 75% for certified fresh.
Certified fresh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, there you have it. You can go to slashfilm.com and see all the lists of movies and TV shows that accomplished that feat. Speaking of Rotten Tomatoes, it's also a huge feat, to get the coveted or not so coveted 0% rating. This is something that is very hard to get, by the way. If you think of the worst movie you've seen this year and you go look at on Rotten Tomatoes, I'm guessing it probably has 40%, 30%. It is very hard to get 0%. But a movie has come out recently that has earned it, that dreaded 0%. Chris, tell us about it.
Right. I will add a caveat here that in the time, earlier today, this actually bumped up. It's now at 7%, which is not good either. But for a period of 24 hours there, Holmes and Watson, the Will Ferrell, John C. Reilly comedy about Sherlock Holmes, sat at a alarming 0%. It had a fair amount. I think there were 15 reviews on there, and every single one was rotten, which is very hard to do. Even Welcome to Marwen, which is to me probably the worst movie I've seen all year, has a better rating on Rotten Tomatoes than this. So this is not good for this film.
And it's so bad. I know we've joked a lot recently of how Netflix just they're in the content business. They'll take as much content as they can get. If Paramount wants to offload, the Cloverfield sequel that is horrible, Netflix will buy it. They'll buy anything. That's what they're kind of being known as. And rumor has it that they were offered Holmes and Watson, and they wouldn't even touch it.
Right. So Deadline, which is a part of the trades and usually gets this right, they reported that Sony tried to offload Holmes and Watson after several disastrous advanced screenings. And even Netflix said no, which really says a lot, because Netflix, they love content and they're not very discerning. They seem happy to buy whatever. But if this is true, and I personally think it is, I've actually reached out to Netflix for a comment, and hopefully we'll get some sort of confirmation. But if it's true, that says a lot about the quality of this film, because, as we all know, Netflix released Bright, and they have no problem with that. They're making a sequel. So,
well, they developed that one. I'm talking about they just buy films like crazy that studios make, and they're now that we've made this film, we don't think it'll make money, so let's sell it off.
And yeah, I can't even imagine what the downside was here for Netflix, because even if they thought it was terrible, there's people will always watch terrible things. So I'm wondering what the conversation was like that made Netflix be we don't want this under any circumstances.
Well, Netflix is always about the analytics. They have seen that for whatever reason, as horrible of an Adam Sandler movie as it can possibly be, their users are going to watch it. So they've made all those deals with Adam Sandler. I'm wondering if John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell don't pull in the numbers over at Netflix. Or, it's also possible that the amount of money it costs to make Holmes and Watson and what they, wanted to sell it for was probably just over that threshold that they had to, buy new content.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's something like that where Sony, it was just they couldn't get a figure worked out, and so here we are. It's in theaters now. Don't go see it, I guess.
Are either of you more interested in seeing this film now that it's getting all these horrible reviews?
I'll probably watch it when it's on Blu-ray, just out of curiosity. I do think John C. Reilly and Will Ferrell can be funny, as their previous collaborations prove. So I'll give it a chance, but I'm not very hopeful.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious too. I don't know if I'll see it in theaters, but I probably I would see it maybe if it's on streaming at some point.
I feel like MoviePass and AMC A-List, which, by the way, just crossed 600,000 subscribers, I feel like they have changed my movie watching habits, because before I would probably never be caught dead going to the movies to see this, or even, renting it or whatnot. Like, maybe if it was on HBO and it was playing, I'd watch it. But nowadays, I have that pass that gets me into, 3 movies a week. And this is probably one of the movies that, AMC has new this week. So, I have a couple hours to spend. I don't know. So maybe what I'm saying is these passes are, doing worse to me than they're probably not helping. But in the past, we've been talking about this Black Mirror special that is coming out tomorrow, I think, on the service.
Yes.
Yeah, it's called Black Mirror Bandersnatch. It has been theorized that this is the Choose Your Own Adventure episode of Black Mirror, which I have confirmed that is true. They have released a trailer online, and I wanted to get your reactions to this because, first of all, the trailer doesn't reveal the fact that it's a Choose Your Own Adventure. I almost think that Netflix was hoping that wasn't going to get out, and they wanted people to be watching this episode, and then all of a sudden at some point it prompts the user to make a choice. And I think that would have been cool, but we spoiled it for everybody. We didn't spoil it. All the news spoiled it. But what do you guys think of this trailer? Let's start with HT.
I'm intrigued. I admittedly don't watch Black Mirror. I've only seen the first episode, and it's a series I'm meaning to watch all the way from the beginning, but haven't gotten a chance to. But I like this trailer a lot. It doesn't really show you much, but it's a series of really compelling and really trippy images that make me want to watch it once I finish all the other Black Mirror episodes, even though I know it's an anthology series and I can just get into this. I am intrigued by the concept of a Choose Your Own Adventure movie, and I kind of wish that Netflix had led with that as well, because I feel like it would make this an even more interesting, or something that I would be more willing to click on and watch, because it's it's an interesting dark sci-fi that has sort of elements of Mr. Robots and other weird sci-fi shows. So I would be interested in checking this out when it hits the streaming service tomorrow.
And this one's set in the 1980s. And, the music is great in that trailer. I think you also wrote an article that there was some information that this movie, or this, is this an episode? This is a movie, right?
It's a movie. Yes.
Yeah.
It's officially a movie.
This movie has upwards of 5 hours of footage. That doesn't mean that you're going to see 5 hours of footage. The choices you make along the way, from what I understand, it's supposed to be a 90-minute experience, but there's even choices you can make that could make it comically much shorter than that, minutes. So
you die within the first minute or something.
Yes. Chris, I'm wondering what you think of this. Is this something? I know you're a fan of Black Mirror, but does this, after seeing this trailer, are you more compelled to watch this? How are you going to make your choices in this movie?
Yeah, I'm really conflicted because, like you said, I like Black Mirror, and I was actually kind of ready to just write this off entirely. But I liked that trailer, but I don't know how I feel about the Choose Your Own Adventure thing, because I get very obsessive compulsive about this stuff. And while a normal, sane person could probably just pick one ending and be like, all right, that's it, my mind doesn't work that way, and I'd be like, oh, I gotta see, what if I pick the wrong ending? I gotta watch all of the potential endings, and if it's really 5 hours of content, that's I don't have that much time to sit around watching all that, all those endings or whatever it's gonna be. So I'm really conflicted on what to do here. Maybe I'll try and settle for 2. I'll watch 2 endings and then call it quits.
And this is directed by David Slade. That's something we recently learned, right? And he's a great filmmaker. I feel like, Chris, if you waited, which I know you probably won't, I'm sure within this first weekend, fans are going to like draw up like a map, like a diagram of like the different choices and where it goes. And then like maybe you could explore knowing how many choices there are and like which roads not to go down. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess so.
Like really, a video game guide.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't really even know how it's going to work. Like, is it going to be only endings, or is it going to be like?
No, it's throughout the movie. It's throughout the movie. You're making choices. It branches off.
I think that's going to be like really distracting. Like, because what if you're like getting into the story, and then like a thing's going to pop up and be like, "What do you want to do now?" And I don't know. When I'm watching a movie, I just want to be, wrapped up.
I actually really like that idea because I feel like a lot of Netflix viewing encourages the viewer to be passive, and this is the total opposite, and something that is more akin to a video game, but still is offers the same amount of plot and like narrative. So I'm interested in this. I've always liked choose your own adventure things, like more choose your own adventure books.
Yeah.
But I've never seen a choose your own adventure movie, and I'm intrigued to see how that would work out.
I loved the books as a kid, but like the thing I didn't like about the books, and I'm assuming it's going to be the same with this movie, is generally you'd make a decision and it would take you off like it would have like this narrative path for like what the story is, and you'd make a decision that would take you off of that path, and then you read something and then somehow it would send you back to that original path. So it was kind of like you taking these off shoots, but you would eventually get back to the main thrust of the story. It's not like, you'd make a decision on page, 10 of the book, and then you'd have a completely different book for the rest of the book. Do you know what I mean? It would always bring you back. And so I kind of felt like it was a gimmick a little bit. I still have on my shelf, there's like a Wolverine Choose Your Own Adventure book. I have that on my shelf. Not a comic book, but an actual novel. Let's talk about the Us trailer, the trailer for Jordan Peele's follow-up to Get Out. This hit on Christmas Day. We previously had reported that it was kind of a home invasion horror film. We didn't really know much more than that. But this trailer, which you can watch on slashfilm.com, reveals that it is that, but the people that are invading the home are, I guess, demonic versions of the family that are in the home?
Doppelgangers would be the term.
Yeah, we don't know if they're demonic, but they're doppelgangers of some sort.
I want to hear what you guys think of this trailer. Let's start with Chris.
I loved it. I mean, I loved Get Out. I love that Jordan Peele is sticking with horror because he's clearly a horror filmmaker who has something to say other than, I'm trying to scare you. Like, he's actually really interested in story, and that, that's very hard to cut. Horror movies are a dime a dozen, and I love the genre, but there are a lot of modern day horror filmmakers who don't really put much thought into what they're doing. They put a few jump scares in, they follow a formula, and that's it. And it's clear.
Well, it's a lot of emulation. They're like emulating the films they love and not actually bringing something new to it.
Right. And it's clear that Jordan Peele, obviously he's inspired by stuff, but he's really putting his own voice into the things, that's inspiring him. And I love that. And just beyond that, the trailer was really effective. I was really impressed with Lupita Nyong'o's American accent, because I don't know if she's really ever done that before. And I thought that was really cool to hear her use that, and everything.
Yeah, she looks and sounds different than I've ever seen her before.
Right, and I love that she's in, I feel like she should be working a lot more. I mean, she's an Oscar-winning actress, and one of the things that's always bugged me about, the new Star Wars films is that they cast her, and then they cast her as this, like, CGI small alien woman, and, like, I actually want to see her on screen. I don't care about her CGI character. But beyond that, I mean, the footage looks cool, the premise looks really exciting and different, and I don't know, I'm very excited for this. I can't wait to see it.
HT, how about you?
I love that trailer. It's so chilling that it kind of traumatized me after watching it. I think it's even more effective and more chilling than I remember the Get Out trailer being, because that kind of towed the line between being a little bit more lighthearted and being a straight out horror film trailer, whereas this one just goes all in with the chills and the gore and the suspense. And I've watched the trailer 2 times, but each time it kind of it has that same effect of just completely unsettling me. And I'm on the same page about Lupita Nyong'o with Chris, because I feel like the majority of her career after she won an Oscar for 12 Years a Slave is like behind the motion capture suit, which seems like a waste of her talent. And she's doing such a great job here. Like, I think everyone is too, because they have to play their doppelgangers as well, and their doppelgangers just have this real uncanny vibe to them that just is completely unsettling. So I love this trailer. I'm so excited for this film.
Yeah, it's good to see Peele on screen. It's I like what they're doing with the music here. It is great that this seems, what you guys said, this is more of a horror movie than Get Out was, at least on appearance. I guess one of my problems with Get Out was that I don't feel like it was a great horror movie. It was trying to be like a horror movie. It was trying to be part comedy. It was trying to be part, social commentary. And I feel like it did the social stuff really great. And I don't feel like it was an exceptional horror movie. I know Chris is probably disagreeing with me here. Because it was trying to do 3 different things, and it wasn't trying to just be a horror movie. I think it wasn't scary. I don't feel like I was scared of Get Out. But this definitely seems like an all-out horror movie, and I'm going to be the one guy that says anything critical about this trailer. But I feel like, to me, I was kind of a little disappointed. While at first I was like, "Oh, this is kind of cool," as doppelgangers trying to, invade their home, and then I was like, "What? This doesn't really say at least on first appearance." This seems like more of a straight-up horror movie, and it doesn't really, at least from what we can tell from this trailer, I'm trying to be very clear, it doesn't seem to have any, something deeper, and maybe they're hiding that. I know Peele has said that this movie is not about race in any way, which I'll link in the show notes. I guess I'm a little disappointed that it wasn't something that has. It doesn't seem to be something that has a greater depth, and it's just a horror movie.
You go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say, in that same interview where he says it's not about race, he also says the movie's really about people realizing they're their own worst enemy. So I feel like there's a deeper.
So maybe there is. Maybe I'm just
on here. Yeah.
Maybe I'm just wrong, but judging from the trailer, you do see how I got that, right? It does feel like more of a straight horror film.
I mean, it's not about race per se, but I think that there are deeper meanings to it just from seeing this trailer, because I see something similar in how zombie movies, for example, approach us seeing our worst enemies in ourselves, but these are the uncanny, lumbering versions of humanity that are empty shells, for example. And here we see that they are reflective of some form or some aspect of these characters. We're not sure what it is yet. It's not completely clear, but I think it is saying something. I mean, I don't need every horror movie to say something. I do enjoy when there are deeper layers to a horror film. That's what I get.
Me too, but I was just expecting, I think, from Jordan Peele. I don't know. Yeah. I guess, again, I think I'll be totally surprised. I think you're right. I think when we see this movie, there's going to be more to it. I think we're only seeing the outer layers of the onion, but that was just my gut reaction from seeing this was, that's kind of a cool concept, but I wish there was more to this, and there probably is more to this. But I will see anything Jordan Peele does. I've been a big fan of him for so long. So yeah, you can check out the trailer for Us on /film.com. Any last thoughts on Us?
I wish we were opening sooner. We got to wait till March. I wish we were coming out next month. That's what I say.
It is crazy that we're getting the first teaser trailer for this just a dozen, just a couple months before it hits theaters. It almost seems like they waited. I'm wondering if that works to their favor, to holding out the trailer for this movie until kind of, I guess it's not the last minute, but it's still a handful of weeks before the film. We'll have to see. Anyways, we're running short, so let's get to Life Advice Corner with Chris Evangelista.
It's Chris's Advice Corner. It's Chris's Advice Corner.
Okay, so today, Joey in Los Angeles writes in. He says, I had the pleasure of watching Hereditary over the Christmas weekend and ended up losing sleep for a couple of nights. It hit me on so many levels, and I forgot how powerful horror movies can be. I had trouble falling asleep in the dark and even struggled to go back to sleep after waking up in the dead of night. I was wondering if Chris could tackle the question of how to get over being scared of horror movies as an adult. I'm a grown man, and I hate losing sleep, which is why I usually avoid movies like Hereditary in the first place. Thanks in advance. Keep up the good work. And that is from Joey in Los Angeles, California. Chris, you watch a lot of horror movies. Probably more horror movies a year than an average person, I think, does in a lifetime. Before you answer Joey's question, do any horror movies still impact you on that level of like losing sleep?
It's very rare that I get like quote unquote scared by horror. Every now and then I'll see something that makes me uneasy or unnerved, but I don't think there's really been anything I've lost sleep over in a long time. But every once in a while something does come along that really does impress me.
So what advice would you give Joey in terms of not being scared, of the movie, outside of the movie?
There's of course there's many different types of fear, and there's that there's a very rational fear, and then there's irrational fear, and I think the reason people really love horror movies, when you get right down to it, is there's a sort of catharsis there, in the sense that as scared as you get from a horror movie, it can't really hurt you. Like, yeah, you can, for instance, I'm terrified of flying. I've said this many times before. And while the odds are fine that I'll be fine, there is always that slim chance that the plane will crash. But, you watch a horror movie, you get scared. The horror movie isn't going to come to life and kill you. So, you have to think of it as a way of like letting off steam, in a way that it's a way to get fear out in a healthy, safe way. Like,
and the chances of like you walking around in your house at 1 a.m. and a serial killer who had broken into your house jumping out with a knife and killing you is probably, hundreds of times multiples less chance of happening than you dying on a plane. And even dying on a plane is very slim.
Yes, there's only like a 1% chance that Toni Collette is crawling on your wall, so don't worry. So yeah, that's how I've always looked at it. That's that's part of the reason I love horror. That it's a way to get that those emotions out in a safe. It's sort of the reason that people love roller coasters. That you go on it, it's a thrill, and then you can get off. But that's how I would approach it.
But that doesn't really answer the question for Joey, because like he is waking up in the middle of the night. Should he be like telling himself that this isn't like how?
I would say you should embrace that fear, Joey. You should hold on to that fear in your heart and save it.
I don't know if that's the correct advice.
It'll come in handy someday.
Hey, no, we never said the life advice from Chris was the correct advice. We just said it was advice.
I'm interested to hear what HT has to say here, because she said before we started that she has a similar problem. So what are your thoughts, HT?
Oh, yeah. As someone who is trying to get more into horror movies and considers myself less of a horror newbie now, I had, I think, about 2 weeks worth of nightmares of Toni Collette crawling on my wall after seeing Hereditary. So this is something that never goes away, even as I watch more horror movies and trying to inundate myself to the fear that these horror movies instill in me. Because I fundamentally think that I'm a person not suited to having that same catharsis as Chris has from horror. I am first very squeamish, and I have a very overactive imagination to the point that I will just like scare myself from standing in a dark room. So this is something that well, the reason that I like to go into horror movies is that I like to try to find, I think I talked about this before, like a deeper meaning or analogy of the horror film that that they really speaks to me. So I tend to just, I guess I try to like distance myself from the movie too, and think that like, yeah, it is just a movie, and think about like the technical process versus like the impact that it made on me. Yeah, I don't know. It never goes away, Joey. I'm very sorry.
I can tell you with me, I feel like when I was a kid, this used to happen to me a lot, where I'd watch a movie and I'd be scared to walk around in my empty house or whatnot. And as I grow older, and even like, going to these Halloween horror events, like these horror mazes, it's just very easy for me to be like, oh, these are just people jumping out at you in costume. Like, you just reason to yourself, like, this is an empty house. There's nobody here. Like, there's no reason for anybody to be in this house. Nothing is going to happen. And it's very easy for me to logically kind of bring myself down to earth. I think the problem when I get scared of movies is when it has something to do with something I can't logically talk myself down from, when it's I don't know, I know, like, I can't think of a good example, but I guess like Final Destination, something that has to do with like death. Like, death can happen. Things can go out of control and cause you to, crash or whatever. And like that kind of stuff is more scary to me, because that is the stuff that is very possible. And I guess maybe some stuff that deals with like ghosts, because logically ghosts don't exist, but illogically,
I believe in ghosts. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, but yeah, I do have some suspension of disbelief there that maybe they could. So, yeah, I guess there is a part of me that still does get scared a little, but I feel like I just keep on trying to talk myself out of it. I'm like, my girlfriend Kitra, when we go into like those Halloween Horror Night events, like she still gets really scared by people jumping out and stuff. And sure, I feel like there's two different things, and I think Chris was getting to this earlier. There's the jump scare, which is kind of like a gimmicky, fun scare. And like after that happens, there's that catharsis, and it's just like, oh, it's just someone, it's fun. It's like a roller coaster. And then there's the deeper scare that actually gets inside you. And I feel like, I don't know, it's harder to talk yourself out of that kind of thing. Chris, after hearing me and HT talk about this, any final thoughts and advice for Joey here?
I'm probably the worst person to give this advice, because like you were saying, that second type of scare, that existential scare that haunts you for days, that's actually like what I'm looking for. I'm so used to such like crappy, lazy horror movies, because like I said, I watch so many. A large percentage of them are bad, and I'm always chasing. I'm like Bill Paxton in Twister, just chasing that tornado. I'm chasing that existential scare. I want that. So if I find that, I actually it's almost like a comfort to me, because I'm like, all right, this movie did its job. But that doesn't sound like what Joey is looking for. So I would honestly just you have to talk yourself down. You have to just tell yourself it's only a movie. None of this is real. Toni Collette's not cutting her head off in the attic. I'm going to be okay. But, like I said, for like a jaded horror fan like me, when you come across that rare, bone-chilling horror, it's like a warm blanket. It's like, oh, yeah, at last. That's probably not what you want to hear, Joey, but that's where I am. Sorry.
I don't know, Joey. Listen to a pop song. Play with some puppies.
Play with some puppies. Maybe Joey should stay away from these kind of bone, like what you were talking about, those kind of horror films, the horror films that you crave. Maybe he should just be sticking to, the more simple, like slasher and gimmicky scare kind of horror films. Or do you think that's bad advice?
I mean, it's bad advice in the sense that you'd be missing out on some really good movies. But if you really can't handle them, there's really no shame in that. Like, there are films I won't watch, not, for some similar, like if there's a film with, stuff. I've talked about this before. If there's a film that depicts some sort of cruelty towards animals, even though if it's obviously fake, I go out of my way to not watch it because I can't handle that. And I don't feel ashamed about that either. So if you feel like you can't handle it, just avoid it. There's really nothing to be embarrassed about on that front.
This brings us to the end of today's Slash Film Daily. HT, where can people find more of your work online?
You can find me writing every day at slashfilm.com, and I'm on Twitter at HTranBuoy.
Chris, where can people find you?
I'm also at slashfilm.com. I'm on Twitter at Evangelista413, and I run the Dog's Way Home message board.
Okay. And if you have a question for Chris, if you need life advice, it can have to do with movies, it can have to do with your relationship, send it to Peter at slashfilm.com, and maybe it will feature in a future episode of the podcast. You can find more of the stories that we talked about on today's podcast on slashfilm.com and linked in the show notes. This podcast, Slash Film Daily, is published every weekday on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, Spotify, all the popular podcast apps. Please send us your feedback, questions, comments, concerns to Peter at slashfilm.com. And please head over to our iTunes page, write us a couple lines, give us a 5-star review, tell your friends, spread the word, and we'll see you tomorrow. I need to ask you about this, Chris, because I know you're a big fan of dogs. There is a trailer that premiered in front of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse called, what is it, A Dog's
Purpose 2 or something?
Way Home or something? I think it's A Dog's Way Home.
It's from the same author of A Dog's Purpose, but it's not a sequel. Did you actually ever see that movie? The first movie, The Dog's Purpose?
No, I didn't, because there was like that claim that they abused a dog on the set, like they threw the dog.
Oh yeah, in the pool. Yeah.
And I think actually it was later revealed that it actually didn't happen. Like someone made that up, but because of that story, I avoided seeing the movie.
Dog's Way Home. Did you see this in theaters?
I did.
What did you think of this trailer?
I think it looks well. For one thing, the trailer gives literally the entire movie away. Like the movie's about a dog getting lost, and the end of the trailer is the dog coming home. So it's like, why would I see this? I know what happens. But
I just love that the dog rescue someone from like an avalanche and like is playing around with like mountain lions, and it's like so ridiculous.
And the dog, yeah. I will not see that, but that's clearly a film marketed towards younger viewers. So more. If it enchants a child out there who loves dogs, more power to it. But I'll probably be avoiding A Dog's Way Home or whatever it's called.
When I saw this play before I saw it play before most of my Spider-Man screenings I saw in Hollywood, and every single time the entire audience was just laughing out loud, like probably like, Will Ferrell intended with Holmes and Watson. They were like hysterically laughing at this trailer. HG, did you see this trailer in theaters?
I did, unfortunately. Yeah, it's not a good trailer. It doesn't look like it's a good movie either. So, but it's dogs. It's cute, and I'm sure it'll make some kid very happy.
So you're not going to see it?
I mean, I might actually see it.
Yeah, I don't think so for me. I don't know. Although I have that AMC A-list pass, so brings it full circle.